Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you can save you years of heartbreak, confusion, and wasted energy. Here's the truth. Being ignored hurts, but the real damage, the permanent damage, doesn't come from their silence. It comes from how you respond to it. So lean in, because if someone ignores you, friend, partner, anyone, there are 3 mistakes you absolutely cannot afford to make, and 6 truths you must hold tight if you want to walk through this moment with your dignity, your power, and your peace still intact. When someone pulls back from you, the natural instinct is to move toward them. You start checking your phone a little too often, rehearsing what you should say next, trying to keep the connection alive by force. But chasing what's running away only teaches the other person one thing: that you're willing to abandon yourself just to keep them close. That is not love, and it's not respect. When someone distances themselves, it's not your job to sprint after them. It's your opportunity to stand still and see clearly. Your value doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's inconsistency. You're not an option. You're not an afterthought. And anyone who treats you like one forfeits the privilege of your presence. Silence has a way of turning into a canvas where we paint our deepest insecurities. When someone ignores you, your mind can twist their absence into proof that you're not enough. You replay conversations, scan your memories, wonder what you did wrong. But their silence is not a verdict. It's not a reflection of your worth. Sometimes people disappear because they lack communication skills, maturity, or emotional capacity. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you at all. And yet, you're the one carrying the weight. Stop rewriting your value to fit someone else's avoidance. You deserve clearer answers than silence. And you deserve to feel wanted without having to question if you are. There's a dangerous moment that happens when you feel overlooked, the urge to perform. Suddenly you're trying harder, giving more, shrinking less, making yourself more interesting, more available, more impressive, anything to reawaken their attention. But performance is a trap. Once you start reshaping yourself for approval, you disconnect from your true identity. You lose your boundaries, your confidence, your voice. You start living for reactions instead of meaning. And what's even worse, the person you're performing for rarely notices the cost you're paying. Real relationships, healthy, lasting ones, never require you to twist yourself into a version that fits someone else's comfort. Your heart is sacred territory, and not everyone has earned the right to stand inside it. When someone begins to ignore you, that is your sign to protect your emotional space, not expand it. Limited effort from them should shift something in you. Your boundaries, your access, your expectations. Too many people try to hold a relationship together single-handedly, refusing to adjust while the other person slowly checks out. Protecting your emotional territory means honoring your peace above someone else's unpredictability. It means refusing to let someone's inconsistency become the soundtrack of your inner world. Responding with clarity instead of chaos is one of the most powerful things you can do when faced with silence. Instead of spiraling, instead of acting out of desperation or anger, you ground yourself. You listen to what their behavior is telling you, not what you wish it said. Matching silence with self-respect isn't about manipulation, it's about alignment. People reveal themselves through consistency. And if their consistency is absence, you're being given information. You're being shown what to believe, what to accept, and what to walk away from. And finally, you turn your attention toward what chooses you. Energy should flow both ways. Effort should meet effort. Conversation should feel like connection, not interrogation. When someone isn't showing up for you, that's your cue to stop pouring into a place that's no longer open to receive you. Life is far too short to chase people who make you question whether you matter. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve enthusiasm. You deserve someone who sees your light and doesn't need to be reminded to appreciate it. When someone suddenly withdraws or goes quiet on you, the instinct to chase can feel almost irresistible. Your mind starts racing, trying to fill in the gaps their silence created. You reach for your phone, you check timestamps, you over the last conversation, trying to decode something that was never yours to carry in the first place. But the moment you chase, you shift the balance of the relationship. You send a silent message that their attention is worth more than your self-respect. And that's where the danger begins. Because once you start running after someone who's pulling away, you train them to believe you'll always close the distance, no matter how far they drift. The truth is, people value what they must work to keep. If you are always the one repairing, pursuing, or holding the connection together, the relationship loses its natural reciprocity. This kind of chasing often happens out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. But fear should never be the foundation of your actions. When someone ignores you, the power isn't in proving yourself to them, it's in proving to yourself that you can stay grounded. Standing still is not weakness, it's strength. It allows you to see their behavior for what it really is, without the fog of desperation distorting your judgment. When you refrain from chasing, you reclaim your clarity. You give the situation space to reveal the truth, instead of forcing a connection that may not be rooted in mutual intention. You also protect your emotional energy, which is not something you should hand out freely to anyone who decides to pull back whenever it suits them. Chasing also creates an invisible emotional debt. The more you give, the more you expect. And when your effort isn't returned, resentment begins to grow quietly beneath the surface. You start to feel unappreciated, undervalued, and unseen, not because you're unworthy, but because you invested more than the relationship was built to hold. Blaming yourself becomes easy in that space. You start to wonder why you aren't enough to make them stay. But the problem isn't that you weren't enough. The problem is that you tried to make up the difference for someone who wasn't willing to meet you in the middle. A connection that relies solely on your effort is not a connection. It's a slow emotional drain disguised as hope. Silence can be one of the most manipulative forces when you don't understand how it affects you. When someone ignores you, your mind doesn't stay neutral. It searches for answers, and you often become the easiest target. You start rewriting your worth based on their lack of response, as if their silence suddenly rewrites your identity. But their absence isn't a commentary on your value. It's a reflection of their capacity, their character, or their priorities. People disappear for reasons that have nothing to do with your worthiness. Fear, immaturity, avoidance, distraction, emotional unavailability. Yet somehow you carry the weight as if you caused it. It becomes a silent rewriting of your self-image. And that's a process that can poison your confidence without you even realizing it. That internal rewriting often sounds like quiet self-blame. Maybe you think you talk too much. Maybe you assume you were too emotional. Maybe you convince yourself you cared too deeply. But every one of those thoughts pulls you further away from the truth. Silence is not evidence. Silence is not a verdict. Silence is simply information. Information about how they handle discomfort, responsibility, or relationships. And instead of accepting that truth, you create stories that paint you as the problem, even though their lack of communication shows more about them than it ever will about you. This is why understanding silence is crucial. It keeps you from believing lies your insecurity created. Rewriting your worth to match someone's silence is the quickest path to emotional exhaustion. When you shrink yourself to fit someone else's absence, you lose pieces of your identity, one apology, one overthinking session, one unanswered message at a time. You start accepting crumbs as if they're meals, and that is how self-esteem withers. You deserve someone who communicates, someone who shows up, someone whose presence doesn't make you question your value. But recognizing that begins with refusing to let someone's silence redefine who you believe you are. There's a particular kind of panic that rises in your chest when you feel someone slipping away. It's subtle at first. A shift in tone, a longer response time, a drop in enthusiasm, and before you even realize it, you start trying harder. You become more available, more agreeable, more impressive. You raise your energy to compensate for the gap they've created. This is the beginning of performing for attention, and it happens quietly, almost naturally, because you hope that if you shine bright enough, they'll turn back toward you. But performing is not connection. Performing is fear disguised as effort. And the moment you start altering yourself for someone's approval, you lose the very essence that made you valuable in the first place. The danger is that performing can feel like survival. When you sense distance, you instinctively reach for strategies. Be funnier, be calmer, be sweeter, be more chill, be whatever version of yourself you think they'll respond to. You try to predict what they want instead of expressing what you actually feel. And although it might get you temporary attention, it never creates long-term stability, because deep down, you know you're not being chosen for who you are. You're being chosen for who you've manufactured yourself to be in that moment. And that realization doesn't bring peace, it brings anxiety. It keeps you constantly adjusting, constantly watching, constantly performing to maintain a connection that was never built on authenticity. Over time, this performance becomes its own prison. You start silencing parts of yourself that feel too much and exaggerating parts that feel more likable. You stop stating your needs because you're afraid they'll scare the other person away. You let your boundaries blur because you don't want to appear difficult. And little by little you shrink. Not because you aren't enough, but because you convinced yourself that the real you isn't what people want. That lie is more damaging than any silence someone could ever give you. It trains you to believe that your truth is a burden, your emotions are inconveniences, and your presence must be earned through performance. The saddest part is how easily performing becomes a pattern. Once you do it for one person, it can bleed into every relationship. You start believing you must over-deliver to be loved. You think attention must be bought with effort, behavior, perfection. But healthy connection isn't a transaction. You're not supposed to hustle for someone's basic respect or interest. When you feel like you must constantly do more, that's not a relationship. That's a warning. It's your intuition waving a red flag, telling you that the dynamic is unbalanced and unsustainable. Performing might keep someone temporarily entertained, but it will never keep you emotionally safe. And when the performance eventually becomes exhausting, as it always does, you're left wondering why you feel empty, unseen, or undervalued. The truth is, you were never being valued to begin with. They weren't receiving you, they were receiving the edited, filtered, polished version you created under pressure. And no matter how hard you try, you can't maintain that forever. Authenticity will always demand to be felt. So when the real you resurfaces, if that person pulls away, it's not a loss, it's clarity. It shows they were attached to the performance, not the person. You deserve to be chosen without auditioning, loved without performing, valued without bending yourself into shapes that don't fit. You deserve relationships where your truth is welcomed, not watered down. And the moment you stop performing, truly stop, the people who never deserved you fall away naturally, and the ones who can handle your full presence finally have room to enter. There's a moment in every relationship, friendship, romantic, or even family, when someone's behavior forces you to confront the truth about access. When a person begins to ignore you, pull back, or go quiet without explanation, that's not just a shift in communication. It's a shift in the level of access they're choosing to give you. And too often, instead of adjusting our own boundaries, we push ourselves deeper into the connection, trying to compensate for their withdrawal. Protecting your emotional territory means recognizing when someone's energy has changed and refusing to offer more of yourself to someone who's offering less in return. It's not punishment, it's alignment. Your emotional space is not an open door that anyone can walk in and out of whenever they feel like it. It's not a revolving door, and it's not a public space. It's a home, a place you've built with your time, your love, your vulnerability, your trust. Not everyone deserves a key, but when someone ignores you, it can trigger old wounds and cause you to cling harder instead of pulling back. You start to invite them deeper into your emotional world even while they're stepping out of it. Protecting your emotional territory means pausing before you let someone's inconsistency decide how much you give. It means choosing who enters your inner world based on how they show up, not how you hope they'll show up. Ignoring your emotional boundaries is one of the fastest ways to lose your sense of self. When you allow people to come and go freely, to reach out only when it benefits them, or to disappear without explanation, you create a pattern of emotional instability within yourself. You start to normalize chaos. You tolerate mixed signals. You accept inconsistency because you're afraid of losing the connection entirely. But protecting your emotional territory means recognizing that your peace matters more than someone's unpredictable behavior. It means drawing a line between what you desire and what you deserve, and choosing what nurtures you over what confuses you. People will always treat your heart the way you allow them to. When someone ignores you and you respond by offering even more access, you unintentionally teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. You show them that their silence won't cost them anything. But when you protect your emotional territory, you set a different expectation. You communicate without ever saying a word that access to you requires consistency, respect, and effort. You show that silence creates distance, not entitlement. And in doing so, you reclaim your emotional balance instead of letting someone else's behavior dictate your internal world. Protecting your emotional territory also means knowing when your empathy is hurting you more than helping you. It's easy to make excuses for someone's behavior. They're busy, they're stressed, they have a lot going on, but repeated patterns are not accidents. Your compassion should not blind you to disrespect. It's one thing to understand someone's challenges. It's another to let those challenges become the reason you tolerate being treated as an afterthought. Healthy empathy has boundaries. It knows when to care and when to step back. It knows the difference between patience and self-betrayal. At its core, protecting your emotional territory is a commitment to yourself. It's choosing peace over confusion, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over desperate attachment. It's learning to close the gate to your heart when someone stops knocking, and opening it only for those who show up with consistency, honesty, and genuine effort. It's understanding that your emotional well-being is not up for negotiation, no matter who tries to enter your life on their own terms. When someone ignores you, it's easy to let your emotions take over. Your mind races, your heart tightens, and suddenly you're reacting from a place of panic rather than truth. But clarity is born the moment you stop feeding the chaos. Responding with clarity means stepping back and looking at the situation without the storm of insecurity narrating the story for you. It's choosing to examine what's actually happening rather than what you fear is happening. You're not matching their silence out of spite or revenge. You're giving yourself the space to see the behavior for what it really is. Clarity gives you the kind of emotional power raw reaction never will. Acting from chaos only deepens your confusion. You might lash out, send multiple messages, or try to force a conversation because you want relief from the discomfort. But every chaotic response pulls you further away from the truth. When you center yourself and choose clarity, you stop reacting to silence as if it's an emergency. You understand that not every unanswered message is a crisis. Not every delayed response is rejection, and not every shift is your fault. Clarity allows you to observe, not absorb. You watch the behavior instead of letting it dictate your emotional state. That alone can save you from spiraling into stories that were never grounded in reality. Clarity also reveals patterns. People are consistent in their inconsistency. When you take a step back, you start seeing what's been there all along, their habits, their priorities,